What if I told you there is 37% less properties available for rent today than there were 10 years ago? You would freak the F out. In this video, I'm going to share with you not only the supply crisis, but also the immigration crisis we're facing here in Australia right now. If you're interested in what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Hey guys, my name's Ravi and welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I talk about real estate, personal development, and all things financial freedom. Now, if you haven't already, you can go ahead and pre-order or order my book, which is Retire Filthy Rich with Real Estate. It's already become a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and I thank you all for the support that have bought a copy so far. But if you haven't, I'm telling you, this will be the #1 book for wealth building in real estate and probably in general in 2025 within the Australian context. Get your hands onto it, read it as fast as possible, and then I want to hear what you have to say about it. Now, we know that over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of volatility when it comes to the rental crisis, housing crisis. Bro, there's crises everywhere. There's crises. I don't know if crises. I'm not sure what it is. Anyways, the point is, we have so many issues going on and it only affects one group of people, which is the lower income earners and the middle class. That's why you're seeing the death of the middle class, and it's playing out so much faster than even I thought. I made a video on this channel last year and I said, look, the death of the middle class, it's playing out, you should probably make some moves. Now, based on all the data I'm seeing, it's moving twice as fast as what I thought it was back then. So yes, it is a cause of concern. That's why I'm trying to bring out more content for you guys and start getting you guys to act, start securing your assets, because what comes next is pretty damn scary. Now, I saw some stats that really blew my mind, and I'm going to share that with you right now. There are 272,645 total supply of homes for sale currently, which is 25% less than 10 years ago, which was 363,853. If that wasn't concerning enough, the next one should be, which is there are 41,894 total supply of homes currently advertised for rent, which is 37% less than 10 years ago, which was 66,639. Now, this addresses supply. And I've said to you before, supply goes down, demand's higher, you'll see prices go up. But this isn't enough information. All we have established with these data points is that supply has dwindled away over the last 10 years. But maybe demand also decreased. Now let's address demand. Australia's population over the last 10 years, so the same period where we've seen housing supply currently for sale go down by 25% and the supply for rental properties go down by 37%, in those 10 years, Australia's population grew by 4 million people. Now, that is concerning. The punchline here is that there is simply not enough properties here in Australia, and we're probably not going to build enough coming soon as well. And if we continue to leave the taps open for immigration, we are basically screwing ourselves over. Australia is headed for an absolute car crash. Now let's look at some data and see what's happened in the past and what that actually looks like when we look at new housing completion compared to immigration and, the population change. What we have here is by macro business. It's dwelling completions in the blue, and then in the red is population change. And what we can see is the data here is from 1985 all the way through to 2024. And I've referenced this graph a lot. And so what we've seen is during the pandemic and the lockdowns, we saw basically immigration go down. And what we've seen is the highest number of immigration come in following that. Now it's starting to taper off, but I wouldn't get too excited because what we want to see is the average, which is around that sort of 200 to 300K mark. But this is still going to record for the next couple of years, closer to about 450 to 500,000 people, which is almost 2x what our average is in Australia. Now, what we can also see is that with housing completions, we did see them at all-time highs between 2015 and 2018. But since then, we've now leveled out just above our averages that we've seen over the long-term period. Now, as long as this blue line is below the red line, it's basically giving you an idea that demand is going to be far greater than the supply that's coming into the market. So as long as we keep introducing more people, and to simplify this, on the right-hand side, it shows that maybe we have about 500,000 people coming into the country, and we're only completing, by looking at the left side, about 180,000 properties. Now, not every one of these people have to live on their own. Some will live together, some will live in family and whatnot. It is showing a mismatch between immigration and housing supply. Now, as a result, I wanted to show you also something that is quite concerning, and it's the rental market. We've all heard the rental crisis and how it's been playing out. what you can see is that it was pretty sustainable growth from 2010 all the way to 2019. But because we didn't build enough and we introduced so many more people and therefore the immigration crisis, we've seen these numbers go exponential. And that's what you've seen in houses and units. Now we've started to see it taper off, and you're always going to see it happen first in units before you see it in houses, because the supply that comes in for units happens a lot quicker. And the example I would use is that if you look into your own backyard, so you see some properties out there, you'll see a house will usually take anywhere between sort of 12 to 18 months to come up. But that's just one house. When you build a block of units, the developers are coming in and it might take 3 years. But in those 3 years, you're building out anywhere between 100 and maybe 500 units. So you can see the difference why we see property prices with houses greatly outperform units in some areas, because it's so much easier to build a bunch of units in the one spot than it is for the house, because the house has a larger land component. Now, I'm not telling you this stuff to just scare you. What I'm saying is that we're in a position where unfortunately there's not enough being built. And I know some people will come out to say housing prices can't go up forever, it's all a bubble, it's all gonna explode. But just ask yourself logically, write it down on paper and say, okay, if the market did collapse, what would that actually look like? And if it were to collapse by 30% or 40%, which is what some people claim it would, then it would have to do something it's never done before. And that is something you need to consider, is markets often rhyme. They usually repeat pretty much. So if we haven't seen something like that, it would have to take a really big reason for us to experience something like that. And the biggest one would be if we suddenly had no immigration. And if we just stopped having 500,000 people come in, or we suddenly had regulations change where you could go in and get approval to build a house. Instead of taking 6 months to get approved, it's instant. In fact, you could go out there and just build anything. You have something extreme like that, then yes, I would go on to say the market probably will collapse. But if you're banking on something happening that's never happened before, well, it's got to be the result of something that's happening that's never happened before. And the closest we would have got to this is during the pandemic. If we were to see this market drop by a lot, that would be the perfect catalyst for it, because it was a black swan event. No one saw it coming, and in modern day times, we haven't seen anything like that. But instead, we saw prices go higher. So yes, I get the argument. Now the average income required to go and buy a house is significantly higher than when it was back 20 years ago. And I would go on to argue, if you went back 20 years ago, it was higher at that point than it was 20 years before that. And that's because the currency that you're denominating everything in is losing its value and has lost 99% of it over the long term. That's why you need to think that the properties aren't going up in value. Understand this. The properties aren't going up in value. It's that the currency that you buy it with is losing its value. That completely shifted how I thought about real estate and why I continue to invest in real estate despite all the people coming out saying there's an 18.6 year cycle, everything's going to collapse, I'm going to be the smartest because I can sell at the top and then I'm going to buy back when it drops. I don't care about that stuff. I get in there, I have a clear strategy, I keep it simple, have an emergency fund, and just continue to accumulate. If some of those properties go down by 5%, that's okay, because I know I'm holding for the next 10, 15 to 20 years. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and a lot of you guys that watch, and you've watched all the way through, you should just smash that subscribe button because it provides us energy. We're trying to get to 100K this year. So if you can help support me by one, sharing the video and also subscribing, I will really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.